Tank Lawrence is going to be out 4 to 8 weeks. That sounds bad. Anytime I hear about Liz Frank or any of those things that involve feet, those are always scary, and they seem like they're long term.
Have you ever
And then
read The Diary of Liz Frank?
I've never read the diary of the injury.
Yeah.
But and then Micah with the high ankle sprain, and they're like, oh, he's week to week. I'm like, when anytime there's a high ankle sprain, it feels like it's going to be at least a month, and maybe 6 to 8 weeks. But maybe he is superhuman and can get back. But the question is, this is already a bad defense for the most part. I mean, the Giants were the Giants. They gave the Cowboys this huge gift. The Giants looked at the first 3 weeks and like, wow, everyone's running the ball outside on the Cowboys. Let's not do that. I'm like, what? I don't understand. And the Giants, I don't know if the Cowboys got things back on track and won that game, or if the Giants just lost that game. But it's like the Cowboys, I'm choosing to look at it as, okay, I don't know that they righted the ship. They just played the Giants. And so now the schedule gets a little bit tougher, and they're without arguably their two best defensive players. I'm like, how are they going to survive this?
Well, they got off to a good look. They're going to have to survive the season offensively. That's the way it's got to be, and it obviously missing your two best defensive players on a bad defense is comical, but they weren't ever going to adequately fix their defense this year. They just had the ability to maybe scheme to the point where it's more sustainable, but they're going to be a team that gives up points. They're going to have to win being a team that scores points, and they got off to that good start offensively on Thursday night, but then it way slowed down. And so did you I didn't listen to the show yesterday. Did y'all end up playing the Mike McCarthy audio of all the pre-snap stuff when Clarence Hill asked him that question? Did you end up seeing that?
No, because KT was producing and he didn't want to have a good show yesterday.
Yeah. Basically, Overcooked Meat Mouth gave a really long answer as to why they didn't. They have like one of the least amounts of pre-snap motion in the league. And so he was like, I've seen those stats. We have those stats. But he was kind of implying, it was a long, rambling answer. And a lot of the gristle from the pot roast was falling out of his mouth. But basically what he was saying was, we've been behind the ball, behind the score so much that, we've had to run a lot of 2-minute offense and hurry up stuff. And, we're not going to have a lot of motion in that. So that skews the stats. Basically saying, man, we've sucked so bad we haven't been able to do a lot of pre-snap motion yet. And I'm like, well, maybe if you started with that stuff, you wouldn't get behind the score so quickly. Who knows? But he's cognizant of it. But the point being is that they're going to have to create ways to keep the defense off balance and score a ton of points. And in that game, it was almost that Giants game to me was almost like the Baltimore Ravens game with the roles reversed, to where the Cowboys got off to that big start and then just kind of grinded down and hey, you want to try a 100-yard field goal? So if they're going to win games this season, they're going to have to be a team that's giving you 28 a week at least, and they're going to have to do a lot. They're going to have to fix their offense, because I don't think they can fix the defense enough to be a good team like that.
Okay. So the idea being, defensively, to fix it, you need like a draft and free agency.
Absolutely.
And a new scheme that you implement as opposed to adjustments.
Yeah. Or maybe some of your guys like a Mozzie Smith gets way better, or Nealon gets way better. Things like that could help. Right?
Hey, I saw Pro Football Focus said he was the highest. Mozzie Smith was the highest graded player in that entire game.
Yeah.
But which is great to see, because I thought he was a complete bust. But I want to talk about that offense. How could that offense go crazy? Because a couple of the stats that I saw yesterday were Dak has like the third most time in the pocket, or the least pressure, third least pressure in the entire NFL. And it's the best pocket he's had like his entire career, or one of the best. He's got, like, in the pocket, he's okay. He's got time.
Wow.
But the separation is terrible. Like it's like the worst in the league. The receivers, their separation they're getting from defenders, and so he's not throwing to open receivers, but he's got a ton of time in the pocket. So why is that? Like I know CD doesn't all of a sudden suck, and he's not getting separation. Now maybe some of these other guys aren't as talented as we had all hoped, but this was a great offense last year.
Mm-hmm.
It was like one of the best in the league, if not the best. And so if he's got time and guys just aren't getting open, isn't that an indictment of McCarthy and the scheme and all that pre-snap motion and tricking the defense? Like everybody knows exactly what's coming and they're covering it, even when they're not getting pressure on the quarterback. So how do you wake up that offense and say, oh yeah, you guys got to stop sucking. Our defense is toast. We need you guys to be the best offense in the league again, or we're not going to win games.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's like that trend of the last 5 or 6 years to have 37-year-old chiseled wonder boy in there calling your plays and trying stuff, and all these guys, if you just want to call it the McVay types or the Kingsbury types, or all these guys bring new ideas to it. I mean, KT's been big on this, that McCarthy is stale. It's funny, the Dak really performed well in McCarthy's offense last year after bouncing Kellen Moore. And so where does that throw the monkey wrench into things? Or was that a big change from what the Cowboys had been previously, and that worked last year, and now everyone's prepared for that and the Cowboys aren't adjusting? That's the other thing too, is we make these really strong opinions in September, and the shit just changes so much. So there's still time. I mean, you know how I feel about McCarthy. I know you feel similarly. But he's won a lot of football games. And so if he'll make some adjustments and make some changes, that could benefit the offense greatly. We know they're not going to have a great run game. So they have to get different with their run game. I think Rico Dowdle is fine. He's not a badass, but dude, he's fine. He's got a little burst. But they need to get them the ball in different ways. And, man, if they ever throw the ball to Zeke in the flat again, I might just turn my TV off forever, dude.
Yeah, the lack of a running game, I do think Dowdle would be a good second or third running back, special teams guy. I don't think he should ever carry the offense. And if the offensive line is doing that well pass blocking, do they just suck run blocking? I don't know, but it does bring me to this. Like, I don't ever want to draft a running back in the first round again, just because You're not going to sign him. You shouldn't keep him after that first contract, because you're going to overpay for those guys. But have the Cowboys backed themselves into a corner now with no running game? And if you don't have a running game, play action's not going to work, and the team can just say, yeah, we're going to double CD on every play.
Yeah.
Try to beat us some other way. And so there's this running back for Boise State that my son has pointed out to me, and every Saturday we end up watching a little bit of his game, or on that weird blue field. And we were watching him this weekend, and my son Miles was like, that's who the Cowboys need to draft. But he's going to be a first round pick. I can't remember his name. He's actually from Frisco. He went to Lone Star High School. This guy reminds me of like Marshall Faulk. He's muscular, but he's not, I think he's 5'9". It's not like he's a giant guy, but he is so fast. Like at any point he can take it to the house, screen, bootleg, down the field. Can he continue this? He's just one of those guys who, if you get him the rock, he could be gone. And I found myself going, would this save the Cowboys offense this offseason to like go get an absolute game-breaking, playmaking, speed demon running back like A-Chain or something like that? Like, would this save the offense to go against everything I believe and actually draft a running back with a first-round pick?
My opinion is that if the guy is special, and those special guys come along, Saquon was clearly special, Bijan is clearly special, that it makes sense. I'm okay drafting those guys in the first round, because the thing is that there's a lot of first round guys you draft that don't make a difference anyways. Like, just because you have a first round pick, there's no guarantee that you're going to keep that guy 8 years. Again, the NFL is a league where most of those guys play 4 years. And so if there's a special running back, I'm totally cool drafting him in the first round. The thing I would say is that you at the very least, need to draft a guy that's a Tony Pollard styled player once every 3 years. If you do that, if you draft that guy in the first 3 to 4 rounds once every 3 years, barring injury, you'll be fine in this league. Focus on having your offensive line be really good and draft a Tony Pollard styled human once every 3 or 4 years and keep churning them over and let the Titans sign them once every 3 and 4 years. And you're fine because you have another guy to plug in. The problem is that the closest thing they had to plug in for that was Rico Dowdle, who again, I think is fine, but he's not special. He's good. He's okay. And if you have a really good offensive line and a guy that's got some speed and can make some reads, your running game will be fine. But the Cowboys, when's the last? I don't remember. It was Tony Pollard, the last running back they drafted that wasn't Gadget Man.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I keep going back to this thing, and I haven't looked at where the Jets picked in each round versus where the Cowboys picked, but the Cowboys gave up a 4th-round pick for Trey Lance.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand you were able to go get a guy who was a top pick in the whole draft, and maybe they wanted to try to put some heat on Dak for those negotiations, or maybe they really wanted to see if there's another cheaper option. He's a useless piece of this team, and his contract's up, so he'll leave after this. Well, the Jets got Braylon Allen. I think he's a running back out of Wisconsin. And, dude, he's Breece Hall's backup, and now they have, double horses, and he looks like a beast. If he was here, I feel like it would change everything. So to your point, they could have had a 2nd, 3rd, 4th-round guy, and they didn't. But this guy from Boise State, this is taking the best running back in the draft, take it to the house. He may have a Hall of Fame type career, I think. And I'll put it to you like this. If the Cowboys could just add one position right now, and if you're watching this, leave it in the comments. We see the comments over to the side. You can add one position to the Dallas Cowboys right now. Just right now, mid-season. Let's just say, and he's a stud. He's a Pro Bowler. What position would that guy play to make the biggest difference with what the Cowboys' issues are right now?
Do you have your answer?
I would say defensive tackle, I think.
I was going to say anywhere on the defensive line. I don't care. Tackle, end, I don't care. They need defensive line help desperately.
But it's so weird that they've been run on outside so much.
Give me anybody on the defensive line that makes a difference.
But
any position.
You're also saying that the defense is hopeless, and so the offense has to tote the note. So maybe it's the best wide receiver out there, or maybe it's legit running back. Or honestly, I think offensively, I think scheme is their biggest problem because they were great last year.
The only problem I have with the Trey Lance thing, if this is true, because McCarthy is a guy that'll just blame other people for shit. Like, that's pretty. KT was saying that when he was in Green Bay, he would come in and tell us that all the time. But we've seen it here. But if it's true that the Joneses traded for Trey Lance without even consulting Mike McCarthy, that's basically what the level of dysfunction that Cowboys fans and media people have been talking about for decades. That is so bad to draft a quarterback, or not draft, but trade for a quarterback that the coach may think sucks. That is so stupid, especially if it's not a guy that you need, right? Dude, he had training camp and didn't even beat out Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush is still on this team. That is silly. And so if they just got a wild hair up their ass and traded for a guy that the head coach is like, that guy sucks, I wouldn't play him. That is such a high level of dysfunction. It's really hard to overcome that sort of stuff and be good. It's very difficult.
Yeah. And there's, people in the comments wanting Devontae Adams. There are receiver like Amari. Are they hate Amari too much to bring him back?
So I hadn't thought about that till KT brought it up. The Amari thing did become petty, but if they can't bring back Amari Cooper, and there could be other reasons we don't know about, right? But if they can't bring back Amari Cooper because of bitterness over COVID, then Jerry Jones, I would like for you to take your own advice and say you can't let your money get mad. Right? Didn't you say that? If that's the case, then let bygones be bygones. And if you can go get him, hell, I'd give up. I mean, I know it's like a 5th-round pick probably to get him. I'd give that up in a heartbeat if it made your offense that much better. But, dude, there may be some other stuff that we don't know, some locker room stuff or whatever that we're not privy to. But what everyone seems to think is that Jerry never got over being butthurt on the whole COVID thing and him missing games when it mattered and blah, blah, blah. But if that's the case, man, look at your squad. And if you can't look at it and evaluate it without emotion, yeah, you're effed anyways, man.
Yeah. All right. We are, you want to put a bow on Cowboys talk here?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, looking at it now, I don't know how you feel, 15-2.
I think they are about to get destroyed. I think they're going to, I think you're going to miss the playoffs. I think this thing is an absolute shit show. In a lot of ways, I think that the Joneses kind of had a feeling it was going that way. That's why they got a dead man walking, the coach in his last year. That's why you got Belichick circling like a football vulture.
He's too busy doing underdog commercials.
And I just, and this is the dysfunction. We talked to somebody, we won't say who, but we talked to somebody who's in the loop.
Jason Witten.
Who was shocked that Jerry ended up signing Dak to that deal, because they're like, man, it seems like 30 days before that, it didn't seem like that was going to happen. I'm like, bro, there is such crazy dysfunction over there. Anyways, we'll see what happens this week. I don't want to watch a terrible team that loses every week, but I fear that this is about to be an absolute shit show. So
I do want to say one last thing in all seriousness. If they don't beat the Steelers, I think the season's over, because I think it's have you watched the Lions play?
Yeah.
They score at will.
Yeah.
And I think it's in fact, I thought I saw a stat last night when I was fiddle farting. I think they have the most 40-point offensive games since the start of last season. And we know what our defense is like, and they're not going to have Tank and probably not going to have Micah. That's the game after the Steelers, right? Isn't it the Lions?
Yeah, I think so.
So if they do not beat the Steelers on the 6th, yeah, they have the Lions on the 13th. They'll be 2-4 going into the break. And that's probably not going to be something you come back from. I don't know. We don't have the stats yet on 17-game seasons, right? It hadn't been long enough to really have numbers to support all that stuff, but it seems very unlikely.